When fishes flew and forests walked and figs grew upon thorn, some moment when the moon was blood, then surely I was born. With monstrous head and sickening cry and ears like errant wings, the devil's walking parody on all four-legged things. The tattered outlaw of the earth of ancient crooked will, starve, scourge, deride me. I am dumb, I will keep my secret still. Fools, for I also had my hour, one far fierce hour and sweet. There was a shout about my ears and palms before my feet. This is a poem called The Donkey by G.K. Chesterton. I love this poem for a lot of reasons, but it is about Chesterton is writing from the perspective of the donkey who takes in Jesus at the triumphal entry. Uh, and I think it's really cool the perspective that he gives from this lowly little donkey who is looked down upon, not considered super special, but as he says, holds his secret in as he gets to be the donkey to carry the Messiah into Jerusalem the week of his triumphal entry. I know we've been going through the Gospel of Luke and plan on going through Acts as well this year. And sorry, I did take that off my screen. And we're at Luke chapter 3, and I know that's not the part of the triumphal entry. We're not there yet, but I wanted to give that poem for a couple of reasons. I love that poem, and also I think it has some connections with the ministry of John the Baptist, and that's what Luke chapter 3 is about in a lot of ways. It talks about John the Baptist and his ministry and what he was there for. There's a lot of interesting things about chapter 3, and one interesting thing that Luke does is the way that he presents John the Baptist. John the Baptist is usually presented in a way that describes more of who he is, like what he does. He dresses this way, he does this thing out in the wilderness. At least that's how some of the other gospels present him. But as James Edwards says in his commentary, he says Luke has pruned the figure of John the Baptist. He's taken away all those different things about his physical description and his personality, all these different things, to primarily focus on his fruit-bearing stock as the forerunner of the Messiah. So James Edwards says that Luke presents John in a different kind of light. He doesn't really focus on all those other things. What he focuses on is solely on John's position as the forerunner of the Messiah. That's what Luke points out about John, almost as saying that like John did some other stuff, but this is what his life was about, was being the forerunner to the Messiah. And so he goes on talking about in Luke chapter 3, which hopefully you've read. If you haven't read, it'd be great to maybe hit the pause button, take a few minutes to just read through Luke chapter 3. But it almost presents this as parallel to the prophets in the Old Testament. So if you go and read any of the Old Testament prophets, you'll probably get a background of who was leading at the time, who was in charge. You'll get this phrase saying the word of the Lord came to this prophet, son of so-and-so, saying, and it would go on saying the prophet's message. And that's exactly what we get here in Luke chapter 3. We get a background of who's in charge at the time. And then it says the word of the Lord came to John, son of Zechariah, in the wilderness. And he goes on to tell this message that he proclaims. And so we get this image of John as the forerunner, this prophet who is specifically looking forward to the coming of the Messiah. And so he goes on preaching this message of baptism and repentance for the forgiveness of sins. That's the message that he comes to bring. And then we get this quote from Isaiah in verses 4-6. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. Every valley shall be filled, every mountain and hill shall be made low, the crooked shall become straight, the rough places become level, and all flesh shall see the salvation of God. This comes at a point in the book of Isaiah where before this, Isaiah is kind of looking backwards and almost in a more of a judgment aspect in his message. But starting in chapter 40 of Isaiah and moving on, we get more of a looking forward to what God's about to do. And that's what chapter 40 functions as in a lot of ways in Isaiah, is looking forward to what God is about to do. And so John, I think, uses this passage in kind of a similar way to say, okay, you need to get ready for what God is about to do. God's about to act, and you need to be prepared for what's about to happen, right? And so they go on, and some people come and they say, okay, what shall we do, right? What are we supposed to do? The crowds ask him. He says, whoever has 2 tunics is to share with him who has none. Whoever has food is to do likewise. Tax collectors came to him and said, teacher, what shall we do? And he said, collect no more than you're authorized to do. Soldiers asked the same thing. And he said, do not extort money from anyone by threats or false accusations, and be content with your wages. This constant message coming, okay, what are we supposed to do then? What do we do to prepare for what God's about to do? And John kind of has a simple message in a way. He almost just says, live fairly. If you go back to some of the prophets' message, they speak against those who take advantage of the poor, the needy, among them. It says, and they get chastised and judged for taking advantage of those people. And so when they come to John says, do what your ancestor didn't do, right? They're constantly being rebuked because they're not looking out for the needy and the poor among them. Says you need to do the opposite. And time is of the essence. You need to make sure your house is in order, right? Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. Don't live, right, for the things that you can gather, right? Don't live for the things of this earth, but live for the one who is coming. That kind of is John's message right here to all these people who keep asking him. Don't live for the things of this earth, but live for the one who is coming, and the one who is about to act. And so he goes on, and they start kind of questioning, okay, who is this guy? What is he all about? What is he doing? Is this the Messiah, right? Maybe he is the Christ that we've been waiting for. A few of them ask that question, and apparently John gets a whiff of this, right? Maybe he hears them saying this, suggesting this, and he stops very plainly. John answered them all, I baptize with water, but he who is mightier than I is coming, the strap of whose sandals I'm not worthy to untie. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. And his winnowing fork is in his hand to clear his threshing floor and to gather the wheat into his barn, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire. And he goes on to say what Jesus is going to do, what his ministry will do when it comes. But kind of focusing on John, right? He says this powerful statement. Someone is coming way mightier than I am, the strap of whose sandal I'm not even worthy to touch, right? I'm not even worthy to do the slave's labor for this guy. He is way more important than I am. I'm not the guy you're looking for. I'm just a messenger of the one who's to come, right? And there's a lot of things that that John does in his life. A lot of important things, I'm sure. Um, but Luke and the other gospels too, but especially Luke, paint John as this simple man who carries out a very simple task, and his life is dedicated to that task, right? And that's why I wanted to read that poem from G.K. Chesterton about the donkey, who is a very simple animal, who's used for a bunch of different jobs and labors. But this one donkey has a very simple life and a very simple task, and his life is dedicated to that task. And his life is completed through that task, and that's taking the Messiah to the world. And that's a little bit of what John's ministry and John's life is like. He's a simple man with not a simple task, but a simple man with a big task of coming and presenting the Messiah, paving the way for the Messiah. And his life is dedicated to that. And he's completely content with that, right? To say, man, I'm not the guy, but this guy is coming. And this is what my life is about, to get you ready for the Messiah who is to come. And hopefully we can live our lives in a similar fashion, right? It goes on to talk about the baptism of Jesus. There's a lot of good stuff in this chapter. But the baptism is also mentioned in some of the other gospels. And then we get this genealogy of Jesus that goes through, traces his connection all the way back to Adam. And there's a lot of really rich things that we can get from genealogies. It's probably spend a lot of time just on the genealogy itself. But one important thing that I think kind of connects with what we've been talking about with John is that you have a lot of people in this genealogy, some that maybe we know a little bit about, but a lot of people we just don't really know about, right? We don't really know their story, what they do, but we know that they serve a significant role in bringing about the Messiah, right? They a lot of these people, maybe they were better known in the time of the writing, but to us, we just don't know a whole lot about them. But they served a role in bringing about the Messiah, and I think that brings a significant aspect of what our lives are about, right? Maybe we're not going to be the most significant people in the world. Maybe not everybody will know our name or what we do or who we are, but we all have a very important task. And just like the donkey in Chesterton's poem, we may not be the most important people. We may not be the most significant people in the world, but we have a job to do, and that's to point others around us to the Messiah. And in doing that, we can be content, even if we don't have those other things, right? Significance or fame or fortune, all that stuff that may not come in our lives, but we can be content. We can be blessed beyond all measure, just like that donkey was in presenting the Messiah in our lives too. So one question that continues to pop out to me as I read Luke chapter 3 is, okay, what part am I fulfilling in leading other people to Jesus? What role am I fulfilling? There are a lot of people who did a lot of big significant names. We just had Martin Luther King Day, celebrating a day, a man who did a lot for the United States, and there's a lot of people who recognize and know his name, but there are not a lot of people who recognize and know my name. But I'm okay with that, right? As long as I can sit back and say, I've done my job. I've pointed people to Jesus, and that's what I want my life to be about. So what am I doing to fit into that role in my life? We hope that you continue to follow with us throughout this study of Luke and Acts. Next week, we'll be going over Luke chapter 4. So if you want to go ahead and start reading that, that'd be awesome. Thank you for tuning in for this little bit, and we hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you.